To welcome you to the platform, please, for your presentation.
Kind of sounds like an empty swimming pool, actually, with the kind of ripples of applause. But hi, everyone. Very good to be here this afternoon. What we wanted to talk about, or I wanted to talk about, was behavioural economics and sort of posing the question, which is clearly a rhetorical one, can we really influence patient behaviour, or is it a fad? And what I'm going to talk about is a self-funded study that we ran in the UK, actually, where we used BE to nudge and steer drug adherence and healthier lifestyles amongst type 2 diabetes patients. And so what I'll talk about this afternoon is our approach in how we designed a study and designed some behavioural interventions to affect the issue of non-adherence. And I think this is non-adherence is clearly a big issue in healthcare, why people don't take their medicine. But I think that what I'd like to leave with everyone in this room, hopefully at the end of my 20 minutes, is some really important lessons, not for health, just for healthcare, but for behaviour change in general through the application of behavioural economics. So, we used, in this study that we did, a BE-inspired model to do a number of different things. We actually used it to form, in the first instance, behavioural hypotheses. We used it, behavioural economics principles, to develop behavioural interventions, and we also used it to inspire the way that we conducted the experimental design as well. Now, the output of all of this is that we show that there are actions that you can take along the behavioural journey that have proven to increase adherence and to actually get people to adopt healthier lifestyles. So our approach here was, we started off with reviewing the disease literature around diabetes and non-adherence. We interviewed diabetes nurses to get their perspectives as well. We conducted an interdisciplinary workshop where we had our own team, we had relevant BE experts from the academic world come in to develop a set of behavioural hypotheses. What might be the reasons behaviourally underlying non-adherence and non-compliance with people taking their diabetes medicine? And some of the hypotheses that we surfaced through this approach are here, that some of the reasons that people who suffer from type 2 diabetes don't take their medicine are here. And, just calling out a couple of them is, diabetes is very much considered to be a personal issue. If I don't take my medicine, it really only affects me. It doesn't really affect anybody else. It's my problem. There's also very little positive feedback that people experience from taking the medicine themselves. There's nothing that kind of particularly beneficial happens. In fact, the initial feedback is very negative. You get feelings of nausea, and you get, unfortunately, feelings of not just feelings, but actual flatulence as well. So there aren't enough tangible rewards. People just feel normal for taking the medicine. They feel not bad, if that makes sense. So a long list of hypotheses for non-adherence. And what we did was that we used some BE constructs to help understand what these might represent. So some of the biases that help us make sense of this non-adherent behaviour are things like mental chunking. Patients felt daunted, in a sense, by the enormity of the behavioural task and maintaining a healthy lifestyle. Our tendency to discount the future, favouring the power of now, means that you make a decision now and you put off kind of proper compliance until tomorrow. There are things like social norms at play, where there are not perceived positive patient identities around, and the sense of social and blame culture here. There's a lack of behavioural commitment, that's going on that enables people to avoid taking their medicine. And so status quo bias, behavioural priming, visual salience, all of these sorts of things play their role in helping us understand and analyse the non-adherent behaviour at the moment. So, the other great thing, what we particularly love at the Behavioural Architects about behavioural economics, is that not only does it give you this incredibly powerful set of tools to understand the current blueprint of behaviour, the current architecture, if you like, of behaviour, it gives you a powerful set of creative tools as well. The very things that you use to understand behaviour can be used to create behavioural change. And so what we did was, from this initial behavioural understanding, was we used BE concepts to try and dial up the triggers, if you like, and dial down the barriers to adherence. So I want to show you just kind of 3 particular insights here that emerged from our workshops that we applied scientific BE concepts to in order to develop interventions around. And the first one was this kind of idea that the insight here was that behavioural intentions made in cold, rational moments can be ignored in hot emotional zones. And I guess the BE concept that's very powerful here is commitment bias. We know from science that people are more likely to go through and follow through on behaviour if they make some form of commitment, public, shared, all of those sorts of things. So our BE intervention was to deploy commitment bias and create a promise contract of patients around their behaviour. One that dials up the saliency around the role of family and loved ones as well, making it this more of a social kind of consideration rather than just a personal one. The second insight emerging from the workshop was this sense that I mentioned before, that patients see the issue as a personal one, not a social one, only affecting them. So using visual saliency and priming, the idea that we are very, very affected by quite tiny subconscious influences, little subconscious influences through images, through the different words, smells. These all prime us to behave in particular ways. And the BE intervention that we developed was to increase the visual salience to diabetes patients of a family member, of a loved one, so that using simple visual and quite basic primes, we could widen the sense that this is something that affected other people rather than just them. And the third intervention, or the third insight that led to an intervention, was this kind of idea that change is hard. We're very driven by the status quo. We don't like, none of us like to see change. We like to go through with the flow of what is. And certainly the size of the goal can seem like an impossible mountain for people to actually scale. So 2 BE concepts that really helped us here, the idea of chunking. That when we get overwhelmed by things, if we chunk it down into little tasks, we build momentum, we build positive direction and progress. The second piece is having a feedback loop, giving people constant and positive reinforcement about their behaviour and achieving mini goals. So our BE intervention, chunk up the journey, set goals and enable people to track progress here, offering positive feedback along the way and helping them build new habit loops as well. So feedback being very important to that. So what we're trying to do here is to prime ongoing adherence of more healthy lifestyle and people taking their medicine. And this is what we did. And I think one of the things that I would draw a big line underneath is to say that many of the interventions that get inspired by behavioural economics are incredibly simple. And what we did was we developed and designed a simple poster here, and I'll explain it from the bottom up if you like, but it's a BE-inspired intervention poster that was designed to live in the patient's home. Right at the bottom you see a promise contract, and what this does is it leverages commitment bias. The patient is asked to sign a commitment to engage in healthy lifestyles on a daily basis over a certain period of time, and that promise is witnessed by a family member, a loved one. The next thing you see working up, you see these smiley faces. These represent every single day of the study that people would put a little sticker, a little smiley face sticker every time they took their medicine or engaged in some healthy lifestyle behaviour. And this is chunking. This is using priming, and this is rewarding and reinforcing that daily behaviour in order to kind of get that habit happening. Then the third thing right at the top is the eyes and the image of the loved one, keeping a watch on you. So priming again here a more sort of social view of their own behaviour, dialing up visual saliency via a System 1 shortcut. Now, be struggling here with clicking. Is it possible to change that from the back, please? Sorry, someone in the AV booth there able just to click that forward. Oh, God, I've ruined the whole thing now. How are you feeling suspense-wise? So just a ploy of mine to obviously kind of dial up everyone's kind of anticipation and excitement. So I think I really do think I stuffed that up. I think I just turned it on. Sorry. I'm going to start a really slow and steady drum beat. Here we go. Excellent. Okay. Oh, I think it's stuck there. It won't go any further. Can you? You know, of course, this is all deliberate. You know, the impact of the results is going to be that much more extraordinary. And you all know that behavioural economics is not a fad. Pardon me? Okay. Just in case anyone was stressing out on my behalf, Richard just told me that the clock has stopped.
Okay, just right here from the back, just put the stress back on you. It's a PDF file, not a PowerPoint. It will not go any further on this hardware at the moment.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's a PDF file, and on this hardware, it won't go past that slide at the moment.
Okay,
so
well,
we can
look,
look into it, but
if everyone, shall I just carry on, because I obviously know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to do this without visual aids now, all right? So where I got to with this then was that we developed a poster. It lived in people's homes, and they signed a commitment, promise contract. They had to, every day that they were adherent with their commitment to take their drugs and live a healthier lifestyle every day, they would put a smiley face on each day, and right at the top they're being primed with their eyes and a photograph of their loved one. And I think an important thing in terms of our experimental design, sort of talk about how we tested this. We had 26 patients, and we had them in a control period over 2 weeks, and then there was an intervention. We gave them the poster, we got the commitment happening, and then there was the intervention period for a subsequent 2 weeks after that. In terms of why we selected type 2 diabetes as a subject matter, this was because this is a huge issue that affects, it's maybe one of the biggest issues in terms of health expenditure in the world. So we felt that it was a really weighty and important topic. And why we chose the types of type 2 diabetes sufferers that we chose to participate in the study were people who took oral medicine, supposed to take it a couple of times a day, were quite motivated could see an upside in behaving in more healthy ways, but were struggling with adherence. So those are the people that we selected. What we found out, or what we anticipated beforehand because of the nature of our design, was we thought it was going to be very, very hard to prove an uplift. For two reasons: a sample reason, and a reason of sample bias, and a reason of methodological bias. The sample of people we felt were going to be more motivated in a sense to kind of engage with the study and with the moderators. And then methodologically, we felt there was going to be a bias because, as everyone would know, simply the act of kind of greater consciousness around one's behaviour can lead to behavioural change in and of itself, regardless of what happens. And so, with that, we were absolutely amazed at the scale of the result that we got from before to after. We got a 50% increase in people taking, reporting living more healthily. We got a 50% increase in other healthy activities as well. But the most extraordinary thing was that 7 out of 10 people started taking their pills every single day. And then a further 80% of people not only took their pills every day, they took them at the right time. And if I was able to, oh my goodness, it's appeared. So, excellent. So here we go, here's the data. So 45% uplift in healthy diet, 51% in increased activity, 7 out of 10 people an increase in drug compliance, and for those who responded, full compliance reached 80%, which I think you would agree is incredibly impressive. These are the sorts of things that people were saying. It kept me focused on my objectives to stop eating biscuits and walk the dog every day. I could plot over the fortnight just how I was going. And if you apply behavioural economic concepts to help us understand the sorts of things that people were saying, this was it. We saw all evidence of how we tackled status quo bias, how commitment bias was working, behavioural feedback, chunking, habits, and so on. So I'll finish by saying that we feel that this is an incredibly important study for showing what can happen with a big issue in healthcare, getting people to take their medicine more frequently, as well as a big issue in behavioural change more generally. Think about how this might apply to... Thank you.
Okay, we have time for 2 questions. I think I saw your hand go up first. So please.
From Ray Juicer. Incredible numbers in terms of compliance going up to numbers like 80%. So
Yeah.
the thing that I kept thinking about is that how about those other 20%? Did you get in touch with them to find out why it wasn't working, or how did they kind of justify not doing it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. That's not something that we were especially, kind of looking into and kind of reporting on here. But I think as with a lot of behavioural economics, you see it's the movement in population as opposed to kind of individuals and what they can say about the reasons for and against their own behaviour that becomes important. So I guess what we're focused on here is this massive uplift in behaviour that we see. I think, an excellent question and something that we can definitely look at.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, I'm Clint from Thinking Decision Science. The framing is clearly brilliant. Did you focus on a specific emotion in those pictures, like I'm proud of you? Should we give me a picture where I'm proud of you, or even like a sexy look from the eyes to try to motivate, or even play with different emotions to see which ones work better?
Well, there's quite I don't know if people might be aware of the study that was done at, I think it was Newcastle University in the UK, where they primed honesty using eyes, getting people to kind of contribute, measuring how much money you put in an honesty box based on the eyes. So when the eyes were particularly mad and staring, they got more money in the honesty box. We didn't look at that here, but it's a really interesting thing to think about. For us, the major thing was about, it's just the visual salience at this point. It's just, I've made it, this is the loved one. I look at things, who I've made a promise with, it's a reminder in that way, and then just the eyes priming the sense of being watched. And we are all more honest when we feel like we're being watched.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.